are drafting a main event team on FFPC, $2,000 entry team, grand prize of $1 million.
I'm looking for that $1 million top prize.
Main event season is in full swing.
District, you know the Pope listens. Dynasty, our religion, for the blokes missing. On all of these trades, on all of these plays, on all of these grades. By the end of the day, y'all getting played. So, what you gonna do next? Try to fill up that flex? Send the homie a text? That trash offer's the best? You try to make it complex, then they text you back. Now all of a sudden they don't make any sense. Broaden your horizons, boy. Dynasty's not for the Simons, boy. These trades not for consignment, boy. Respect your opponent, y'all some piranhas, boy. This my advice from me to you. Open up your cute little podcast queue. Search up GOAT District, my dude. Pop it in your ear, man. Y'all know what to do. It's the... And I always be traded. And I always be traded. And I always be trading. Y'all try to betray them, but first you gotta bait them. Fish.
What is up, Fantasyland? We are back in the GOAT District with one of the GOATs himself, Dan, the legendary. And I mean legendary. This guy comes on the show, and as much as we love Abib, we love all the guys we have on here, nobody has a resume as stacked as this man right here, Dan. How excited are you to have our boy Chad Schroeder? Before I let you answer that, Dan, let me try to get the stats in here, just so the people tuning in right now can understand the depth of this man. 24-time full season national champ, FFPC main event champ, NFFC prime time 2-time champ, FFWC main champ, NFBC prime champ, RTFF C 3-time champ, NFBC online champ. Dan, I'm running out of champs. I mean, there's a few more I could throw out there, but why don't you let the people know why they need to be tuning in right now and listening to the legendary Chad Schroeder?
I mean, JD, you know I play a lot of high-stakes leagues and everything, but I'm guaranteeing you Chad has probably won more high-stakes leagues than I've even entered. So that's just pretty much the depth of it. An absolutely amazing player, just has such a good feel for the game, and the instincts are just top notch. And I'll tell you what, that's the one thing that is the hardest probably to pick up. You can't really teach it very well. You just got to pick it up through experience, and Chad's got that. So welcome to the show, Chad. We're happy to have you here.
Happy to be here. Sorry that I'm not as good at technical situations that caused a delay, but
it's all good, brother. We are so pumped to have you on, and we appreciate so much you giving us this time. I know you and I spoke earlier in the off season, and you were like, you know what? I want to help your listeners. I'm going to come on later on, closer to the season, once I've got, whatever amount of number drafts under your belt and all the information you need. So we are so excited to hear your takes tonight. I tried to load this show sheet with as many things as I could that I wanted to hit up with you. We'll hit on as many as we can, but this is going to be a good one, guys. So make sure you tune in. We're going to talk about, obviously you see it on the thumbnail, Travis Hunter is the topic of the offseason. We'll get to that. We'll hear Chad's take on that, and it might surprise you where he sits on the Jacksonville rookie. But before we do that, let's start early rounds, Chad. I mean, right now, it seems for a good long while, I know Dan and I have been drafting since, right after the Super Bowl, and Jamar Chase has been in that top spot for most of the offseason. The odd time you see a Bijan roll in there. Is Jamar Chase your 101 right now?
Yeah, I don't see any reason not to take him 101. Chances are he won't end up being the best player, but he's most likely to be the best player, and that's what you have to look at.
And who would be your 102? Who's the next guy in line, or do you have like a group of guys that you kind of shuffle through, or how do you play that early first round?
For the time being, it's definitely Bijan. He's generally the guy that's going in that spot, and doing the amount of drafts that I do, it would be irresponsible of me not to take him with the 2 pick. If I start pressing guys up that I'm going to be taking later on anyways, my fair share, then I can get myself in trouble. So it's Bijan all day for me right now.
Dan, has it changed for you at all with the kind of front end? I feel like it's been pretty, I don't want to use the word chalk because that almost has a negative meaning these days, but we kind of see the same guys, right, in that first half to middle of the round. Maybe the back end's changed a bit more.
Yeah, I think there's a lot more shaking up of ADP going on in the back end. The front end, I think you're still looking at pretty much Chase, Bijan, and then, probably Gibbs, Lamb. If you're in the FFPC, you start thinking about Bowers there, and in that range. And Chad's exactly right. I mean, if you're doing a bunch of drafts, if you start pushing guys up to the 102, you're never going to get, you're not going to get even on Bijan like you need to be. So it just makes sense for those early part where there's not a lot of debate on the ADP to just, go ahead and follow that ADP just so you can get your exposures right.
Yeah, and it's kind of like that with Chase even, right? Like if you get the 1, you almost there's no point in being fancy unless you're doing like 1,000 of these or whatever entries in a specific tournament, and that you're getting the 1 for like the 10th time or something. But at the end of the day, you want to get those Jamar Chase shares. You're going to have to take them at the 101 when you get that turn.
The only thing I would say about not taking Chase or Bijan there, and this gets into game theory that really isn't my style of drafting, but there are some very smart players that I talk to, especially in best ball leagues, that are not super high dollar entry fees, but high payouts at the end. Like you're talking the Millie at DK and the underdog, the Mania. There is some thought processes out there that you can get unique combinations that you can't get if you like take, just for example, Justin Jefferson at the 101. You're going to have Jefferson with some different types of guys than most Jefferson teams will. It's not really my style though, so I don't really do that, but I just thought I'd throw that out there.
No, that's very valid.
Very small buy-in tournaments that could be something that some of the listeners might want to try.
That's very valid, right? And that's something you're looking at, especially if you're doing multiple entries, Dan, in these tournaments, is you're kind of watching how can you get a little different with some of these combinations, especially with those early guys. Now we're seeing some of those, maybe some guys falling more into the back end of the second, into the early second that were maybe in the back end of the first. So that's allowing for some of these new combinations, I guess you could say, or rarer combinations. Dan, are you seeing that, especially with kind of the Stafford news with Puka, or whatever it is, the neighbor's injury, whatever it is that's kind of pushing? Today we got some news on A-Chain, so we're seeing like a shuffling almost from the back end of the second into the beginning, into the middle of the second. Sorry, from the back end of the first into the beginning and the middle of the second. Right. Yeah. Exactly. And that's
And the thing is, if you really want to get serious about shuffling, you almost got to pull somebody from the that's normally going in the back end of the first up to the front of the first, because there'll be enough out there, especially in these huge tournaments, that even if you push like CeeDee Lamb up to 101 overall, you're still probably going to end up with some duplications of who were taken at the 2-3 turn. But if you pull in, Amon-Ra St. Brown or somebody like that, and then pull them up to the 101, then you could probably get some unique combinations.
For sure.
I just want to say that I also just think this is a way to get to poor land in the long run. I don't think you're going to get out of your leagues very often doing this, but it's just something that's one way if you don't want to take the chalk every time. And in some of these smaller buy-in tournaments, I could get behind that perhaps.
Looking at contract situations are always tricky this time of year, Chad. We have one that got resolved in James Cook out in Buffalo. I think we kind of expected them to bring him back in, give him a deal so he can be back on the field in Buffalo. Has that changed your exposure with James Cook? Is he someone that you were drafting, or did you just take advantage of the dip? And where are you now with the Buffalo running back?
I think that, and granted, I have honestly not done. I've only done best ball drafts to this point for the most part. So I haven't got into FFPC yet that much or anything like that, which is going to happen in big bulk here starting probably tomorrow. But anyway, I guess my point is, as far as the drafts I've been doing, I was probably doing it wrong on James Cook to this point. I wasn't real high on him to begin with, and he's grown on me as a player. It has nothing to do with his signing. I should have been drafting him at a little bit of a dip, and I wasn't really doing that. But I'm starting to warm up to him as I'm starting to cool on some of those other players that are going around him. He's just kind of elevating up in my mind. Yeah, especially in best ball when he's an explosive guy, you don't have to pick when he's going to be used on his score.
Yeah, I think people look at the TD total, Dan, and kind of disregard him a bit because of that and use that as a negative. But again, in that offense, we know that Allen is not necessarily targeting a specific receiver over and over. Does that change this year? Who knows? But you got to think that James Cook comes in, as much as Ray Davis gave us flashes. You got to think that he's back as the prime ball runner and even goal line action, in that offense, as much as we see Allen take the ball over the line.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, he's an explosive player, as Chad said, and that's that's really what matters, especially when we're talking about when we get down to the the final weeks of a tournament, and weekly upside means everything. We're not as concerned with what might have happened before or anything else, because all that matters is stacking together a few big weeks, and Cook is a guy who can help you do that.
It always bothers me with Cook. It's frustrating because I see Cook as a talent that could be a first-round pick, but he's not used correctly. They should be running Ray Davis up the middle instead of Cook so many times up the middle, but letting Cook handle the ball in the passing game out in space a little more often. He's a lot better than Ty Johnson at doing that. Maybe not at catching the ball specifically or pass blocking, but he's a hell of a lot more dynamic once he gets the ball in his hands out in space. And
yeah,
I
totally
it's just
agree.
frustrating they don't use him in that way.
Yeah, he doesn't get enough touches, really. I mean, or doesn't get a lot of the high value touches that we want him to get.
Yeah, and I mean, this year you got to think Kincaid maybe gives us a bit more of what we expected last year, and then they've got just a bunch of guys that, whether you're talking Elijah Moore, Palmer, you can go down the line beyond Keon Coleman. You think Keon Coleman could take a step this year. We hope that he does. He would be a nice value if he did. We've got Shakir. Is he still dealing with injury, Dan, Shakir?
Yeah, he's still out right now.
Yeah, so, other than him and his contract, it's going to be a blur at receiver. So, it gives you kind of a nice way to get into that offense. And you can, I was going to say, you can try to get the Josh Allen, James Cook, stack, especially if you're talking like those big ball best ball tournaments at that 3-4 turn. But even that now, they're going pretty close together, as we saw there on my big gorilla. Shout out to Fantasy Mojo.
Honestly, I don't know if I see that as a stack I would want, really, because they don't throw him the ball that much.
True. That is very, very valid. Dan, how do you feel about that?
Yeah, that's it's kind of a high price to pay for. It's kind of like you feel like you might be involved in most every Bills touchdown if you have them both, but it's hard to get the real correlation of a stack. with a guy who's mostly scoring his touchdowns on the ground versus a guy who's mostly throwing and running them in himself. So it just doesn't really help you as much as you might think.
Yeah, 32 receptions last year, 44 the year prior. We'll see. We'll see this year. I mean, it's one of those offenses where you think it's going to pretty much stay status quo with no huge.
Where I kind of don't mind that type of combination is in like a high society or big payback league at FFPC when it's a high scoring offense and you're getting those touchdowns and you don't need to beat a million teams. You just need to beat 11 teams.
Like a 12-man.
That consistency can pay off there. I don't consider it a stack per se, but it's those contained leagues are more where I would be more comfortable pairing those guys up than the race type contest at the end.
Yeah, we're not necessarily looking for that ceiling per se.
Yep.
But like a shit ton of TDs. And
it gives you a high floor and a nice ceiling, but just not that explosive ceiling generally.
So
and it's not like Alan can't complete a pass to Cook and he can make a move or two and take a 50-yarder to the house. But doesn't catch any passes, but it's just not a stack you want per se.
Yeah.
Let's go over to Washington. Another contract situation with McLaurin. He's still unsigned. Now you've got Brian Robinson trade rumors going around. He even sat out, I think, today amongst those rumors. And then you've got Ja'Cory Croskey-Merritt, who's, the next Emmitt Smith out there in Washington. Who are your favorite commander targets right now at ADP, and how are you approaching the McLaurin situation? Are you kind of buying the dip on some of these commanders because of that, or is it a situation you're avoided? Where are you kind of putting your chips in this commander's offense for this year?
I'm not really putting my chips on any of them right now. A safe running back. If you are going 0 RB or real thin in your room, I think as the team stands now, Austin Eckler is still going to play a very important role as they don't have very many guys to throw to kind of get you out of the gates if you need to until you hit on a handcuff or whatever. Not like I'm targeting him though. I think Zach Ertz is always undervalued, and I still believe that. So I'm fine with him as a backup tight end if you take a shot at a Warren or Loveland or something like that that's not quite proven.
Yeah, Zach Ertz tight end 18 right now, Dan.
Bill, the new guy, not Ja'Cory anymore, but Bill, there's a lot of buzz about him. I think he's going to, he should, I tweeted out earlier, I think he should drop a couple rounds just if he's going to be called Bill instead of Ja'Cory. But
yeah, but of course after tonight, he's probably already broken Emmitt Smith's career record. So
I am not caught up on what happened tonight. I will say that. Did he play tonight?
Yeah, he did play tonight, and he's busted off at least one long run. So.
Okay.
The hype machine is in full sway out there right now on X, so it's pretty fun to see. And I thought it was great, Chad, that Austin Martin and I were having a conversation earlier tonight and talking about Eckler and saying the exact same thing. That he fits a very specific type of build. If you got a 0 RB build and you need a little bit of help early until some of your 0 RB candidates come online, he's the perfect kind of guy for it. So love hearing you say that too.
Yeah, he knows what he's doing, so I'm glad that he agrees. So I don't sound like a total idiot.
Is Debo someone that you like, Chad, as the new addition to that offense?
Not particularly. He just seems like he's slowing down, and why would he stay healthy this year when he hasn't been lately? He's getting older and slower. I just don't think he's going to break fantasy.
Dan, where are you on Debo?
Yeah, it's a pretty similar spot. I mean, I think he could start off the year looking real nice, especially if McLaurin either misses a game or two or is rusty or something. But yeah, I'm with Chad that I think he's just I don't feel like if I miss out on Debo, I'm missing out on somebody who's going to really change leagues. He's just kind of another guy at the spot where he's going. And as a matter of fact, I'd probably rather take a shot on Matthew Golden or
Definitely.
even Jordan Addison. Wait 3 weeks and you got yourself an Addison on a top flight offense. So it's just hard to take Debo where he's going.
He probably needs to fall round and a half, and then I'm open to him.
Right. Yeah, I think that makes sense. That's
Like in the Cooper Cup, Jaden Reed range.
I like him more than those guys.
Okay.
Yeah.
So if we go from Washington and we look at some other kind of influx offenses right now, I know Joe Flacco was just named. I believe he was just named today, the starter in Cleveland. Dan's giving me the yes confirmation. You've got Judkins now back from the legal issues. He still hasn't signed anything. I think, what did I see today, Dan? Something like that they might not sign him until.
Yeah, they're waiting for the NFL to maybe finish their investigation.
Oh, that's
I
what
think
it
they're
was.
just kind of. I think they're just kind of using that to try to lowball him a little bit on the contract, and say, hey, if you want to come in now, this is what we sign you for. Otherwise, you can take your chances and wait. But I don't know. I think he's far enough behind that at this point it's interesting to just continue to play the Sampson and Ford angles.
He's not gonna be seeing snaps in September, what suspension or not.
Is a ninth round?
Yeah.
Is a ninth round Judkins attractive to you, Chad, or are you kind of hitting on the other guys like Dan's
No.
talking about?
No, I don't think he is.
What about the receiving game? Dan and I we're at a standstill right now with the receiving pieces. Whether you're talking about Judy, who goes in the 6th round from what I could tell here in the Big Gorilla, and then you've got Cedric Tillman that goes in the 13th round. I put out a post the other day looking at splits between Judy with Tillman on the field and off the field. I think it was like an 8 or 9 fantasy point difference. I just feel like Judy, it was kind of why he was really the only guy there at the time. They had Winston chucking the ball. How do you feel about the receiving game in Cleveland? Are any of those two guys attractive to you at ADP?
Kind of my approach right now is in best ball leagues, I kind of like Tillman late. I don't like Tillman in like redraft leagues very much, especially FFPC. I usually am one to only carry about 5 wide receivers at FFPC. I usually try to get 4 to 5 earlier ones, and I don't want to be in that business in the 13th round dealing with guys like that I'm never going to want to hit the start button on. That's where I want to be taking handcuff running backs that can break fantasy football if it hits, and Tillman's not going to do that in my opinion. More of a best ball play. Judy I'm fine with in all formats, but I'm not like pushing him up, or if he falls a little bit, I'm fine with him. I like Njoku as well, just fine at tight end. And I like Sampson and Ford and best ball if you're weak and you kind of need a 9 to 10 point floor guy to fill in some weeks. But Sampson's the intriguing guy there for me because I think there could be something there. I don't know that Ford, they wanted to have drafted 2 guys if they believed in Ford that much.
Whose price should go down, Dan, when you look at Sampson now that Judkins is back, right?
Yeah, I would think so. I mean, I think Ford is the most forgettable of the options, and if you've got Sampson, you're probably good for the early part of the season, and then who knows what'll happen after that. But there is one thing, when a running back gets a hold of a job, if he's doing a real good job, it kind of doesn't matter what draft capital or anything else is. He's going to hang on to that job if he doesn't give him reason to look elsewhere. So that's why I'm still big on Sampson. I like the fact that Judkins is kind of back in the conversation because it's just pushing the Sampson price down again.
I agree 100% with that. And also, SEC Players of the Year don't grow on trees, and Sampson was.
Exactly. Yeah, and with Jerry Jeudy, I mean, I guess JD, we gotta get you back on your RotoViz subscription because Sean Siegel's already penned his love letter to Jerry Jeudy this year, so we gotta get you to read that. But there's also been a lot of good press coming out about from the beat reporters and everything about the connection between him and Flacco seems to be really solid and strong.
I have a question for you guys.
Sure.
So I'm in a lot of best ball leagues, and I'm going to be in a lot of higher dollar best ball leagues from this point on. And especially at DraftKings where there's 20 rounds, and I like to wait at quarterback a little longer over there sometimes, and looking for third quarterbacks is important. Do you guys think there's any way Flacco makes it through the season as the starter?
Man, that depends on whether you think Cleveland's going to be in playoff contention all the way through. I think it's a shaky bet. But, again, with best ball, sometimes the shaky bets are the best ones because if they work out, there's not many people on them.
I think it's one.
Let me ask you, put it in another way. Are you better off taking like a Flacco or a Jackson Dart?
I think it depends on who else you have.
Personally, I'm taking Dart there, Chad, because just the buzz around him over the past couple weeks has been really solid, and trying to see how the Giants are going to go through their first 6 weeks, which is a murderer's row schedule, and Russell Wilson's still coming out, with his job, unless the Giants somehow manage to go, like 3-3 or something out of those first 6 weeks. I just don't see it. I think there's going to be too much pressure. Dable's best chance to keep his job is to switch over to the rookie quarterback and hope they get something going a little bit late in the season where they say, well, we don't want to, throw this rookie to a different coach. We'll give Dable one more year. So for those reasons, I've been kind of on Dart as a late round possibility more so than Flacco or anybody else.
The problem is, Chad.
And Dart did look good in that game the other day. He
sure
reminds me of Bo Nix a lot. He gets rid of the ball quickly and decisively.
The problem with those later, like older guys, like the Russells and even the Rodgers, and you like especially best ball, you've already got like in say one QB. Usually you have a couple quarterbacks that you already have as starters, so you're really trying to fill those late round bye weeks or deal, maybe back into the season.
Just in case one of your two guys gets hurt, you want to have
exactly
a DraftKings when there's 20 rounds. Unless you have like a Josh Allen or Lamar Jackson type leading the room, then I'm fine with two.
But then you can even go for you can even grab like a Geno Smith, which is like right now.
That costs you a lot more than Flacco or Jackson Dart does.
Yeah, I mean,
I didn't want to sidetrack the show for 15 minutes talking about this, but
but it's very valid though. It's very valid, right? Roster construction. How we're going to talk about the quarterback position. So I mean, we can talk about it a bit now. We talk about how it's deep, but I think it's important to kind of figure out, just like any other position, where these players fit in your roster throughout the season, where you're expecting them to produce those points for you, right? So if you're usually those back end guys, you're better off taking like Shedeur, Dart, even Shook. Because they're probably, there's a higher chance they're going to be giving you some upside on the back end of the season versus a guy like Russ or even Flacco.
Yeah, and not for nothing on this conversation too, but when you have your mind opened up to players who might do well, after the season starts, I think that's a big bonus because the people who had an open mind towards Nix were the first ones to gravitate towards him and grab him when he started looking good. And those who are like, it's Bo Nix, he's no good and all that, they didn't grab any Nix, and so I think it just helps to kind of have an idea of where you think players might be headed, what's their trajectory over the course of the year. And when you see something that says you might be right, then that allows you to jump on them earlier.
Bo Nix and Baker Mayfield last year, it goes to show that free agency is so important. And when I was having quarterback troubles, whether it be Anthony Richardson teams or Jordan Love wasn't performing up to par, or even Mahomes wasn't playing that well, I bid big money ahead of the curve on Nix and Mayfield last year, and those guys saved my season and got me to a lot of playoffs that I wouldn't have been in if I just stayed status quo. And so just a good reminder that free agency gotta grind, man.
Yeah, you got to be early. I mean, you don't want to be the last guy, because number one, if you're early, odds are if you can grab them a week or two before they really pop, you're going to pay a lot less. You're going to have more money left over, and the other thing is, they're going to be on your team instead of somebody else's.
So I was carrying 3 quarterbacks by the end of the year on so many teams because I didn't want to drop anybody and put them back in the pool. Until they would not be allowed to be picked up anymore. And that's okay at quarterback. It's an important position, and you can play the matchups if you have 2-3 quarterbacks and stream them. So don't be afraid to go be aggressive. If there's a quarterback you like on the waiver wire that shouldn't be there, even if you have a decent quarterback already.
That's a good point.
100%. Let's look at another couple teams that are dealing with quarterback, I guess, dilemmas, you can call them. The Colts have Pittman back from his injury. Giddens obviously added, looking like the RB2 behind Jonathan Taylor. Downs is dinged right now. Tyler Warren looks like he's going to be targeted often in that offense. How are you approaching the Colts right now? How are you approaching this quarterback situation? Do you like any of these pieces at ADP right now when you're drafting your teams?
I will say this, I've drafted a lot of downs so far, but I'm kind of getting buyer's remorse. And my early drafts that I've done so far are not real significant in the grand scheme of things. Smaller best ball contests. Kind of where I'm learning my way around still. But I'm starting to get to the point where I'm learning that that's not a receiving core I want to be too involved with. Because what really changed from last year, except for they added a great tight end to the mix. So it's still the same guys competing for limited volume in the first place. And now you have a real good tight end involved also in there. I just don't know how any of them are going to really break fantasy football. I do like all of them more if Jones is quarterbacking, but I don't think that's going to be the case. I think it's probably going to be Richardson.
Yeah, I think having, Jones plus Richardson, basically what it does is it raises the floor somewhat on these players, but it doesn't really do anything for ceiling for any of them.
Yeah, I agree.
Before we go to the next offense, dealing with some quarterback questions, let's go to a quick word from our friends. Oh, sorry, go ahead, Chad.
Real quick, while we're talking about the Colts, Giddens is turning into a high priority handcuff for me. So then you can go to your break.
My most owned rookie right now on the FFPC. I'm happy to hear that. All right, let's go to a quick word from our folks. On the other end, we're going to come back, talk a bit of Rams, Stafford, bit of HA news today, and then we'll talk about that Seattle running game before we get into Chad's hot take of the night on the Jaguars rookie receiver, cornerback. What's it going to be? Let's get a quick word. you're not already at myffpc.com, guys, right now, some really nice tournaments going. You've got the 125 buy-in for 300,000 to first in the BBT. You've got the Superflex BBT for 100,000 to first place, $35 entry. You've got the big gorillas that are flying 350 entry for $1 million. You've got the main event 2,000 entry. You've got all kinds of 12-man leagues from $5 all the way up to, I don't know, Dan, where are they at now? 1,000, 1,200.
Oh no,
1,000?
you can go up to $2,500 on a standalone league these days.
That's right.
On the FFPC. So you have every option available to you for sure.
That's right. Whatever your flavor, man, it's on there. It's our favorite site to play fantasy football, whether it's Dynasty, Redraft, Best Ball. Go check it out. If you're not on there, even if you're already on myffpc.com, if you have friends that you've been trying to get on there, throw them our promo code DRBaller, DRBALLER. It helps the show, helps the channel, and it helps whoever's depositing for the first time get $25 off of their first team. Let's go to the Rams. Chad,
should have used that today when I sent them $100,000 this morning.
That's what, guys. When we say we bring in the best, we bring in the best. I mean, it's it's one thing to say, but it's another thing to talk or to walk, right, Dan? As we say on the show, and $100,000 on a platform is definitely a walk.
We are sitting here with the Warren Buffett of fantasy football as well.
There you go. There you go.
Yeah.
And that's why this is one of our favorite shows. Even back when we had the GOAT District back in the day, Chad was always a guy if we could get him on, we'd get him on to pick his brain. We want to pick your brain right now with the Stafford situation. Obviously, he's back at practice. Maybe the buy the dips, opportunity is gone now. Is it? We can discuss that. But how are your feelings on the Rams? Whether you're talking about Puka, they've added Adams. So pretty dynamic duo there at the receiving position. They signed Kyron to a big contract. Any values in this situation right now to take advantage of? Are you avoiding it? Does it make you nervous with Stafford, or is this just the same thing we've seen every other year with his back issues?
I think there's a little narrower gap than most people do between what would happen if Stafford misses games versus if Garoppolo or Bennett, whoever they decide to go with, would quarterback. I think they're capable of getting those guys the ball still in that offense. I don't think Stafford's amazing. He's better than those guys, but I don't know that I like those guys where they're going that much with Stafford. That's the problem I'm having. So, but they are dropping in certain drafts now to the point where I'm sprinkling them in a little more comfortably.
Yeah, I think there's something to that.
Those guys.
Yeah, so not a heavy target, but just somebody if they drop, then you might add them in to kind of diversify a little bit.
Yeah, that's kind of where I'm at. Probably a little more open to Adams than Nakua. I'm taking Brian Thomas, and I don't know what the FFPC ADP is, but they're close on some sites. I'm taking Brian Thomas, Collins, Neighbors. I actually like London probably more than Nakua, but I'm still probably taking Nakua. Well, yeah, let me see this. So Thomas going just barely ahead. I think Nakua and London are real close. So that's where I might want to get a little heavier on London, but not overdo it one way or the other.
Yeah, and Nakua's really kind of going all over the map. I mean, I've seen him go mid-late second round. I've seen him go still at the back end of the first round. So there's not a consensus on him for sure.
I was talking today with Nelson Sousa for a while. And we were talking about the third round being a real rough terrain.
Yeah,
I don't know if you guys agree with that, but that's where Kyron Williams came into play, and we came to the conclusion that he's not an exciting, but he's an acceptable option in the third round just to provide some safety when there's some landmines in that area.
Which is that also kind of describes Jacobs, no? in a way.
Jacobs, it feels like you're paying a half round earlier price for, so it's a little different, but.
Yeah, I mean, he's not someone I target. I just feel like it's kind of like he's kind of.
I see what you mean. Yeah.
Yeah, like that.
Yeah,
when you describe him that way, that's kind of how I see him. Like I was telling Dan, and we can maybe get to that point just because we're talking third round running backs. Walker's a guy that I just been loving. I feel like the other night we saw the Seattle running game just crush. It didn't really matter who had the rock behind the line of scrimmage, Dan. And I told you about a trade I made recently in a Dynasty league on the FFPC where I got Walker, what was it? Walker and Kraft. And I sent TJ Hawk. I'm not going to remember this now. Can't remember the other two pieces that I sent. Chuba, I think. And Woody Marks. That's what it was. Yep. And cut downs are coming out in FFPC, so that's definitely a factor. But I just love getting Walker at his value. I think he's been in and out of the lineup, but maybe it's one of those situations where he's being saved, but by the team and.
Yep.
Can you hear me still?
Yeah, I can still hear you. JD, you're muted somehow.
Oh, wow. Was I muted the whole time there?
No, not the
just
whole
for
time.
a few seconds.
Oh, that's weird. Okay. Yeah, no, I was just saying that running game is just attractive to me in Seattle. And, I sent a second for Charbonnet after that so I can kind of lock up that running back room. But we talk about the third round. He's going. I know Dan's boy, Trevion Henderson, now is going in that third round. You've got Walker there. We talked about James Cook. So just some nice running backs if you want to double tap receiver early and then get yourself one of these, whether they're less boring at the beginning of the third or maybe more exciting, when you get in the middle with Hampton into that Seattle game or that New England game. How do you feel about some of these running backs, Chad, that we're discussing, or that Seattle running game?
Okay, so first of all, if I'm not mistaken, in that impressive looking game, and to be clear, I've watched every play of every preseason game so far. And some of them are snoozers, but that's where you find some free agent value later on, seeing how all the running backs look. So I have definitely some guys in mind later on if they end up in the right spot after they don't make their current teams. That's where you can benefit by grinding through all that. It's not fun. You end up having to take a break at times to get through it. But anyway, to get to your point, I think Seattle was playing one level ahead the whole game. Like, I think they were going starters on backups, then second string on third team. They did look very impressive, though, running the ball. My thoughts are Walker has always gotten hurt every year. Something always happens, right? He also struggled at the goal line last year some. He likes to dance down there like he likes to dance always a little bit. Whereas Charbonnet means business running it through there. Bigger and tougher running straight downhill, right? So I can see situations where Charbonnet becomes the goal line back inside the 2-yard line. I also just think Charbonnet looks too good for them to not play both of them a lot. If they're worried about Walker getting hurt, it makes no sense to give him 80% of the carries. Why not balance it out more? Keep him a little fresher. Might help keep him from getting hurt. When you have a quality player like Charbonnet, it really concerns me about Walker, if I'm being honest.
Could you get a bit of a Gibbs-Demont situation if this team is running the ball heavily?
I don't think either one of them has a Gibbs profile where he's a great receiver, and I don't think they throw to the receivers under this new coordinator as much as the Lions do to Gibbs. So I don't really see that comparison necessarily.
Yeah, it'd be a very light version.
I like Charbonnet
on the Gibbs side. Yeah, Charbonnet definitely looks
more than Walker because he's less likely to get hurt. He goes much cheaper, and he's proven he can win leagues if Walker gets hurt.
Yeah, I think that's a fair take. Walker,
But I do like Kraft though.
and I wouldn't.
Yeah, I love me some Kraft. I know Dan likes TJ Hawk this year, but I didn't mind kind of pivoting. Oh, did we lose Chad? There we go. He's back. We're back. The aliens are taking over the show again. They just every once in a while they come in and get a little crazy with the Wi-Fi and the audio. We're it's all good though. Full steam ahead. We're gonna move ahead. Let's go to Miami.
I'm not sure. Can you guys hear me right now?
Yeah. You're good.
Yes,
You're good, Chad.
yes.
We're here loud and clear.
Can you hear us?
Oh, maybe he can't hear us.
I'm wondering if you can't. Yeah.
Yeah, we'll get this sorted out. Sorry, guys. We're just having a bit of a tech issue with Chad getting the setup going. Dan, I'll go to you while we're waiting for Chad to come back. Looking at Miami, A-Chain now with some news today with him dealing with an injury. You've got Tyreek. You're hearing that the Tyreek Tua connection isn't as. I mean, when I saw that, I was like, they've been playing together for how many years now? But for whatever reason, the connection isn't there. Supposedly, you've got Tyreek Hill kind of on the back end of his career. But these two guys are going top 3 rounds, Dan. It's a little risky. You've got Tua, obviously, with the concussion situation. Is this an uncertainty you're taking advantage of? I know, I don't want to say too much about our dynasty teams, Dan, but we've got some plans, that I don't want to like put our laundry out here, or whatever that saying is, but our dirty laundry out on the show here, especially if some of our league mates are listening. But that's a lot to invest in these, top 3 draft capital, especially in these big tournaments. Like you talk about the main event, $2,000 buy-in, the big gorilla $350. The Miami pieces, to me, unless you're going later, obviously there's a lot of options later that we can talk about, but these top 2 guys going in these top 3 rounds, they make me a little nervous, Dan. How about yourself?
Yeah, I think Tyreek definitely makes me more nervous than Achane, but again, I was talking to Austin. They got he and Hubbard got Tyreek at 407 tonight in a draft, and I was like, are you kidding me? And I'm like, I still don't even know what to think about that. It's like, well, that's a great price for Tyreek, so for that reason, I like it. But I can also see Tyreek, failing to even live up to that. Because he just looked like he really started to lose it last year. Achane gives me a little bit less concern. The main thing is just kind of the whole vibe around the Dolphins. Just does not seem great. And that always worries me, but I think Achane is probably in the best place to succeed. The only thing I'm worried about is that calf injury that he apparently has. But at this time of year, you don't really know what's the severity. I mean, because if even the slightest little tweak, and they're going to take him out and hold him out as long as they need to, because there's no point in pushing it until the season starts. So I don't know if it's a big deal or not. I suspect it's going to cause Achane's price to drop. If I see a price I like on him, I'm probably going to go ahead and continue to buy him. I'll take the buying opportunity for now. And we get closer to the season, and that seems like a bad idea, then I can always shut off the spigot.
Chad, where are you on this, the Miami, especially these top 2 pieces that we're seeing in top 3 rounds, and Achane and Tyreek? Obviously, the injury news with Achane. And then Tyreek kind of falling. Dan saying 4.7. I see 4.6. Like kind of that's the latest he's going. Obviously, if he falls at a bit of a value, you don't feel as bad about it, but kind of makes you nervous with the Tua concussions, kind of the uncertainty just overall. Like Dan is saying, it seems like there's a bit of a mess going on in Miami. How are you approaching the Dolphins this year? Oh, hold on. You're on mute there. Hold on.
Is that better?
Yeah, there you go. We got you back.
Okay. Getting my devices crossed here.
It's all good. Appreciate you, man.
So, yeah, I'm a Dolphins fan, so it makes it even worse to deal with all this. So, Tyreek is a very, very tough spot, and a guy's got to be right on it, or at least have him enough to not get stung by it. he drops into the 4-6 like you guys were talking, sign me up all day, because nobody receivers have that kind of upside as he does in that type of territory. I was seeing a stat earlier today, I also believe, where in 2 of his healthy games, which was I think like 10 games, he caught at least 6 passes in like 7 of those games and had a touchdown in 6 of those games. And Tyreek was hurt last year too. I think it was more of a deal where their offense was hurt because they were scared to let Tua hold the ball more than a second after he came back again. That's why you saw Jonnu Smith catching 1-yard screens after 1-yard screens and broke fantasy in that way somehow. But that hurt Hill and Waddle more than anything. They don't have that anymore. I think that Tyreek is just proud of himself enough that he's going to still go out there and play. I'd like to think that. That's how I'm drafting it so far. I'm still pro Tyreek, and I'm still pro Tyreek as I take these dips now that are coming. But you don't want to overdo it and just ruin your season by having 30% Tyreek all of a sudden, and then all of a sudden those teams are gone. It could be an Antonio Brown situation coming.
Do we see this situation unravel in Miami, you think, Chad, with like McDaniels, and if things don't start off very pleasantly in Miami, you think?
I kind of hope that in some ways, just from a Dolphins fandom standpoint, I kind of hope it does all go south at once, and they fire Greer and they fire all these guys, and just reset it again. They screwed up the last reset. They were set up well and they mangled it. Imagine if Herbert was their quarterback right now, what a better spot they'd be in than Tua. They always mangle it. That's Dolphins. My damn parents, when they were piss poor in college, I was born when they were in high school, and they bought me some Dolphins pajamas out of the clearance bin at the grocery store, and I've been a Dolphins fan ever since.
It's funny how when you're a kid, it just takes one item to make you a fan, you know? You get the right item.
Can't imagine why nobody in Lincoln, Nebraska wanted Dolphins pajamas in the clearance at the grocery store.
That's an awesome story, Chad. That's so good.
That's great. So let's
talk. Also, though, I think he's going to dip. The one thing that nobody's talking about as much as Waddle, like, if people are concerned about Tyreek, why isn't Waddle moving up? He's just kind of staying the same. Just because all the vibes there are shitty in general, I guess. Which kind of makes sense as well. The other guy I really am enticed by is Ollie Gordon. He looks way better than Jalen Wright. He's far more cerebral. He's a good pass blocker. He's a good pass catcher. He's a big goal line type back, which they need. So that's a guy in redraft to really prioritize in those later rounds, in my opinion. Especially with A-Chain already banged up right now. So.
Yeah, and
I like the thought process there, Chad. That's Wright has just never really struck me. I had high hopes for him at the beginning of last year, but as I watched him play last year, and kind of read the practice reports and see what we see in preseason games, it's hard to have any faith in Jalen Wright right now.
He's not a smart football player. He doesn't know how to read the holes. He doesn't know how to set up the holes. It kind of reminds me of, I was real high on Booker from Denver back in the day. And he was kind of the same way. He had no patience. He would get the ball and just run into the pile without setting up his blocks or having a clue what he was doing. That kind of is what Wright reminds me of.
Yeah, and you can get Ollie cheaper. I mean, I think that probably gets closer together because you're hearing a bit more negative tone when it comes to Jalen Wright at RB54 right now. Ollie just seems like a more all-around kind of back that if A-Chain did get injured, they'd probably feel more comfortable having him in there where the defense is not necessarily reading what's coming. with his
In
versatility.
redraft, if it does flip, I'm still willing to take Wright too, just in case to see what happens, because you can drop him if it becomes clear he's got the second role. So if it gets overdone, I'm willing to both of them, because I think Achane, whether this injury amounts to anything or not, I think he's a prime guy to get injured during the season. I've thought that for 2 years, and he's kind of stayed healthy for the most part, but he's a prime injury candidate.
Yeah, he did get injured his first year in the league, but he managed to, I thought, stay relatively healthy at A&M, in his college career. So But
he didn't take on the workload there that he is here either.
No, definitely not. But he had a bigger workload than like Gibbs was in college. So it's I think there's definitely, just given his size and how they use him, that always worries me. When you have a smaller guy just going in there and getting mashed by the big 300-pound defensive tackles and all of that, and they do run him up the middle some. So those kind of things worry me for sure. But don't think he's especially injury prone, if that makes any sense.
Guys, don't forget to smash that like button.
It does.
Takes a millisecond. It helps us big time on the show. And if you're watching this later on, drop a comment in the comments. If you have any questions, maybe we didn't hit on a topic you wanted to hear Chad comment about, you can always ask us, and we can always send that to him on the X machine. Maybe he'll give you a quick answer. Now, and make sure you subscribe, because we got a lot of goodness coming. I know Dan and I have some pretty big drafts coming up between now and the start of the season. We got some pretty big guests. We got John Daigle lined up, Jax Falcone, just to name a couple. So a lot coming up on the channel. Make sure you subscribe and you've got the notifications on. Let's talk rookie receivers, Chad, with regards to, obviously, Tet, Ibuka, and Golden seem to be getting, obviously now Tet has the injury to deal with, but overall those three have been getting, more on the positive side of things when you hear how fantasy feels about them. But what other rookie receivers, are there any other rookie receivers that you're maybe targeting, whether it's late, obviously later in drafts, or situations that you're liking that maybe not too many people in Fantasyland are talking about right now?
Not really. Being an old fart, I like guys to show me first on the field. I have a hard time taking guys that don't have roles on the team right now, and so I think a lot of those guys are overdrafted. But again, I've been in best ball mode, and I don't want to waste half the season and not getting scores out of these types of players. So as I get into redraft mode, I need to sprinkle in talented guys here and there, just so I'm not completely blindsided, like if Odell Beckham happens out of nowhere. But the Tesla kid from Detroit, it looks interesting. In best ball, the only rookie I really like a lot later in the drafts is Thornton from the Raiders. If you're on the field a lot and you're fast, you're relevant in best ball. But other than that, I think a lot of these rookies are hyped up. I'm okay with Golden, I think. I was starting to warm up to Hunter a little bit, but then I see Parker Washington looking pretty good, playing in the slot there. I'm still not certain how much he's going to be on the field, so I think he's overpriced a little bit. McLaurin, I do like.
Yeah, I'm curious. How do you feel about Tet? Do you feel like he's a good value at ADP right now?
I think he's going to keep rising as we get closer to the season. Maybe this hamstring that he caught, I think I saw he caught a little injury today.
Yeah. Yep.
Maybe that'll slow down the momentum a little bit.
Yep. And then Egbuka has been really rising in drafts.
I forgot about him. Yeah.
What do you think about him?
He's a polished player, When I think of Ohio State receivers, I don't think he's quite as dynamic as some of the ones that have came into the NFL, but he's more polished than any of them were coming into the NFL. As far as route running and wisdom, and that matters because you're going to be on the field as a rookie if you do those things. And Godwin, I'm starting to wonder if he's not going to be back till like week 8, 9, something like that. Doesn't look great right now.
Yeah, it really doesn't. And, the one thing that's really nice with Egbuka is that they run so much 11 personnel. And if Godwin's out, then that's an easy spot for him. And with what they put into him in draft capital, I can't imagine that Jalen McMillan is going to be a real thorn in Egbuka's side either. Maybe the first few weeks if Godwin was healthy, but he's not. So, I don't think that really matters either. I think by the time that Godwin gets back on the field, I think Egbuka is probably going to be well established in the offense. And then, Mike Evans has his own injury concerns. So, I think one way or another, the targets are going to be there for Egbuka.
Yeah, I agree. I don't see what's not to like about him. McMillan's going to play outside. He's more of an outside type of player than he is. So it's setting up real nice for him. And Cade Otton's not really a great dynamic threat over the middle. Like he's going to be the guy that's handling the middle. They're creative, they'll move Evans into the slot once in a while or McMillan once in a while. But predominantly he's going to be operating in that middle of the field that I like. And that Mayfield is good at finding that type of range.
We've got a question from the audience here. Ryan C. asking about Kyle Williams or Pat Bryant. I know Dan and Pat Bryant just seems to end up on almost every roster. He's a guy we really like out there in Denver. Kyle Williams, obviously, just has like old man Diggs coming back from injury in New England. So lots of opportunity there to build with Drake May. How do you feel about these two young receivers or rookie receivers? Is there one you gravitate more than the other? Do you like both of them? How do you feel about Kyle and Pat here?
This is interesting because I talked extensively 2 days ago with my buddy Nelson Sousa about these two guys and also Harris from the Chargers. I think a couple others as well, but because I was trying to talk to him like I'm doing all these best ball drafts and these guys always show up at the top of the ADP and I don't know enough about them and I don't know what their role is out of the gates and I don't want to take zeros for half the season. The consensus was that he agreed with me that they're not very good best ball picks. But don't get blindsided by these guys. Keep an eye on them as they get dropped by people in redraft. Look to add them for $1, but maybe not draft them where they're going. But these are the prototypical guys that get dropped because they're not doing anything. People want to get a backup defense or what. Who knows what people do? It's crazy out there sometimes. But as far as which one I like more, I definitely like Bryant more than Kyle Williams, I think.
Yeah, I think Dan, you'd probably agree with that as well. The nice thing about Kyle is, and Dan, and I think you and I did this even in the last draft. You guys haven't checked out Dan and I's Big Gorilla. We just dropped that over the weekend. Make sure you check that out. But the nice thing with the New England receivers, when you talk about Kyle Williams and DeMario Douglas, is they go so late that you can even pair them together, and you think that you could get a full receiver out of them. Dan, maybe Douglas in the beginning, he seems like the favorite right now as a top target in that offense. We'll see how Diggs is, once they're in game mode. But Douglas and Kyle Williams are kind of easy to pair in a build if you want to do that.
Yeah, I think so. And, right now Kyle Williams he's a little bit dinged up. So he got hurt in the game with the Vikings. And I don't think he's made it out onto the practice field since. So, that's definitely pushing Pat Bryant ahead for me. But, you're exactly right. I mean, this was an old concept that Todd Burrows nicknamed stat cuffing, where you take two late wide receivers and you try to kind of Frankenstein together, one good one. It's more for best ball than it is for managed leagues, because in managed leagues you'll probably tear your hair out trying to figure out which one to start each week. But in best ball, it can work a little better.
I don't really know that I see that, because isn't Williams more of an outside player?
Yeah, he is more of an outside player. So, it's basically, the idea is not necessarily that they play the same role, but it's just that somebody's going to catch the passes. So, if Kyle Williams,
I like Douglas a million times more, even without Williams in best ball, than I do.
And he's cheap. Like Douglas, if he does end up being one of those top two, he's going in the 14th round. Like I know in the Big Gorilla, which is the same round as Kyle Williams. So I just feel like it's, the value is there with double D's. You got to think.
And again, in the Big Gorilla, I like to have my wide receiver work done by then.
Totally.
Yeah.
I don't want to be carrying 8 wide receivers on my Big Gorilla team with Kyle Williams and on my team, wasting where I could have a Giddens or something like that at running back that can break fantasy if Taylor gets hurt. Kyle Williams is not breaking fantasy. FFPC, when you have all kinds of roster flexibility and there tends to be wide receivers hanging out on the waiver wire more than other formats, you don't need to have 8 wide receivers on your team, in my opinion.
No, and I think the last time you came on, Chad, we talked about this. I say often I like to be top heavy at the receiving position for that exact reason. It's a lot easier to know which running backs to throw into your lineup than your receivers. Your top guys, obviously your studs, they're going to fit into your lineup. But when you get to these double-digit round receivers versus some of these high upside, especially this year with the rookie class at running back position, and how deep it goes, you're definitely better off accumulating running backs later on. But, you've got some builds. If you mix up the builds, whether it's one of these big tournaments or best ball or redraft or whatever, where you want to mix it up, maybe you go a little running back heavy earlier on, you're going to run into having to add a bit of depth at receiver.
And I definitely find myself in all kinds of conundrums because I draft what comes to me.
Yeah.
Sometimes I'll have 4 running backs to start my draft out.
Yes.
And I'm willing to press the boundaries. The best way I can phrase it is eventually the draft flips. Sometimes it doesn't happen as near as soon as you would hope it would, but eventually it flips where the other position becomes a value. So I keep taking the value early in the draft. The most important picks. I want the best players on my team. And if that means I'm getting into a heavy build, I think that I'm better at most at overcoming it and figuring it out from there. That may be a little arrogant on my part, but that's just what I believe. So I can get some unique builds that way instead of reaching guys up, as we kind of discussed earlier. I'm willing to get unique builds by overdoing a certain position early in the draft. Am I making any sense here?
Yeah. I mean, I'd say you've definitely proven you have the ability to compensate for pretty much any sort of start. I mean, your record speaks for itself. So, and that's
it also narrows your focus on the free agent wire as well.
Yeah, that's a good point.
Kyle Siebert, you keep throwing a question in the chat. Can you just clarify? I'll try to get that question to Chad. Can you just, and to Dan, just clarify?
I think he's saying these are all these players he has, and he just wants to know if he should take Henry or Josh Allen.
But is that like a super flex? Is that a 1 QB? Is this like, I'm guessing this is not Dynasty. What's the other one that I never play? Keeper. Like, is that a keeper league? Is that what that is?
Probably.
Now, maybe let us know. Give us a bit more detail, Kyle, and we'll try to answer your question. Let's go to KC, guys. Obviously, Rice now. Well, I was gonna. So it's half PPR, 1 QB. So let's get the question in, and then we'll go to
Kansas City, and then a bit of Chicago talk. So he's got Rice, Worthy, Pollard, Pickens, Irving, Bucky, I'm guessing, Mayers, and he has to choose between Derrick Henry and Josh Allen as his franchise player. It's a keeper league. It's a half PPR, 1 QB. So basically he's asking, do I keep Derrick Henry as my running back, or do I keep Josh Allen as my quarterback if I can only keep one?
Does it matter what round they were drafted in or anything like that?
That's actually a very good question. So does it matter, Kyle, which round that they're drafted? Because sometimes that plays a factor.
Yep. Another good question is how many teams in the league?
And how many teams? So we'll come back to your question. Just give us those 2 details. We'll come back to it. Let's go to KC. Rashee Rice now we've learned is going to be there for the first 4 games of the season. So, I mean, at least that allows you to kind of plan, because for me, the first 4 weeks are always the biggest.
I don't think
card.
that's a lock, by the way.
Yeah, I would agree. I don't because they could make a deal anytime before that.
Oh, that's actually very valid. See, that's very valid. Didn't know that. There you go. So that's a piece of information right there. Now, so I guess how are you playing that? You know, just overall, the Rashee Rice situation, how you playing it is Worthy a guy that's a bit more attractive to you with all the uncertainty there? How are you playing this KC receivers situation?
I'll go first, I guess. Rashee Rice, I would have been a little lower on him with it. Like, let's just say that he didn't have any legal issues or whatever. I would have been a little lower on him than last year because of Worthy's development. And they were scheming Worthy the ball a lot at the end of the year. Granted, Rice wasn't there, but those plays worked. And I think they're going to remain a part of the offense. And Worthy also can break the top off a defense at any given moment. So I was always higher on Worthy. Not necessarily in relation to Rice if he wasn't going to miss time, but I always liked Worthy, and I always knew Rice is going to miss some time. The question is Rice going to be the Rice we saw last year after an injury, after Worthy's more acclimated to the offense, to make him worthy of a 5th-round pick if he's going to miss 6 games? I don't think so.
Dan, there's nothing I like more hearing from these sharps, just the opinions that I have, especially this situation. I've taken heat even on X, just tweeting about how I don't think Worthy's going away. I think that, especially going into the playoffs last year, end of the season, Mahomes just seemed comfortable with him. Didn't matter how far down the field he had to get him the ball. He was getting schemed. He made some serious catches, some catches he wasn't making at the beginning of the season. And we had not seen, that's exactly what I said, we had not seen Rice on the field with this experienced Worthy, I guess you could say, quote unquote. I mean, it's good for Mahomes. It's good for the KC offense. I just don't know if we're still getting that same Rashee Rice target hog when maybe there's a bit more options, you know, when you're looking at Worthy. So Dan, how do you approach the situation? And maybe you can, you know, touch more on this Rashee Rice with, you know, they're saying the first 4 games he might be there because obviously his hearing, I believe, is on September 30th, if I'm not mistaken. So maybe we find out then. But like you said, if they do cut a deal and he takes his whatever games that they come to as an agreement, it could be in right off the bat, right, starting week 1.
Yeah, I just wrote an article on Player Profile on how to handle the Rice situation. And basically what it comes down to me is, number one, we know the NFL was probably trying to throw a big suspension at him, and Rice felt like he deserved a much smaller suspension. That's why they haven't been able to come to an agreement. They've got the same arbitrator that they used for Deshaun Watson. So that lets you know that the NFL is taking this very seriously. You know, they're not going to try to fool around on this thing or anything. They want to get something done. But, you know, the thing is, if it's a long suspension and they don't get this thing going, you know, the hearing's not till the 30th, and then it's going to take at least a couple days to decide. And if one side or the other appeals it, then we're talking a couple more weeks. I mean, we could be talking about, you know, Rashee Rice starting to miss fantasy playoff games pretty easily. If he gets like an 8-game suspension and they don't get this thing going until, week 6 or week 7 or something like that, at the very least, you're going to be coming down the stretch, with your fantasy league trying to get yourself in the playoffs, and you got no Rashee Rice. It just isn't worth it to me because of the fact that, now you're trying to deal with a Rice suspension at the same time that you're dealing with, other players on your team getting injured. You got bye weeks and everything coming on. I'd much rather have that suspension be, the first 4 weeks and then however much longer. But, it could be a long suspension. I think it's probably going to be at least 6 games at this point. And I'd guess more on the 6 to 8 side than the 4 to 6 side. So
I agree that I think 6 is a fair number, but it's probably likely to be higher than that than lower. And here's the problem. Either way you slice it, here's the problem. If they come to a deal and it's 6 weeks to start the season, Worthy gets even more established.
Oh yeah.
Yep, exactly.
Oh, yeah.
If it goes to that hearing and then he gets 6 games. He's not practicing for 6 weeks. Worthy gets established. And you're probably not making the playoffs with your team anyway unless you get real lucky on some later round hits.
Worthy becomes...
Even if Rice comes back at that point, you do make the playoffs, it's going to be a whole different offense because Worthy's going to be the featured guy at that point as well.
Worthy becomes...
Either way, while he's not practicing and playing for 6 weeks... it's not going to work out well. The only thing that I think there's a non-zero chance that this hearing gets delayed somehow is they still are talking about it. And then all of a sudden, we'll just handle it in the off season and he gets no suspension.
Which is best case scenario.
I think it's higher than 0 that happens.
I think it's higher than 0, but I wouldn't put a big bill on it. That's for sure.
So I don't either, but I'm just saying it's possible.
Yeah,
Right?
yeah,
So,
I'd agree.
So
I
if he
agree with
drops
that.
like 2-3 rounds because nobody wants to deal with it in that particular draft, I'm not just taking him off my draft board here, type of thing.
Yeah, at a certain point, he's a value.
I can't really consider him before the 8th round. If he gets to the 8th round, that's about the point where I'm starting to say, okay, well, I'll think about it because an 8th round pick is not going to kill my team if it completely flames out. Any thoughts on that, Chad?
I think he's got to fall a round and a half from his typical ADP in the contest I'm playing for me to get involved in it.
All right.
Yeah, which puts him like 6, 7, the middle of the 7th round because he's going like back into the 5th right now. I got him in the 6th round in a draft a few days ago, which felt like a bit of a value. But now, I didn't think about that. Didn't think like, oh, maybe they get a deal done. Maybe he does. And, you kept hearing 4 to 6 games. But I love this Worthy take, Chad. And for me, the way when I hear you talking there, I'm thinking like, we got Worthy becoming the Tyreek Hill of this offense, and I don't see why he can't do that and why he can't be that weapon. Our buddy Lance, sports betting man, talking about Kelsey being a bargain. I do think Kelsey has been a bargain in especially some tight end premium drafts. I know I got him pretty cheap, couldn't believe where I got him, but I think Worthy kind of, if he does take that step this year in that offense, and we do see Rashee Rice absent in that offense, Worthy could become, a pretty nice league winner, in my opinion.
I could see scenarios where Worthy's going like mid-second round next year.
Totally. Let's talk roster construction before we get you out of here. Chad, I know you're doing some best balls, and, best ball for me is always kind of like the practice. It's not the practice rounds, but you kind of get to play around with the roster construction a little bit. It's, obviously in redraft, you got to think starting those lineups, but that's what I love about best ball is you can really play with those roster construction. The QB and the tight end position, we've talked about, especially quarterback this year, how deep it is, kind of those later guys. We talked about the really late guys. How are you approaching these two positions in draft rooms? Like, are you more likely? I know you've talked to us about being top heavy at receiver and not needing that depth, and it makes you more comfortable, especially in redraft. How are you approaching the QB tight end position? Are you liking some of these elite, top tier guys? Do you like to wait and accumulate more depth at those positions? How are you playing these two positions right now in your builds?
Quarterback and tight end, to be clear, right?
Yes.
Yeah. So I've always had a long-term philosophy that, and it's changed a little bit because FFPC is a little different. So I'm kind of talking formats where it's not premium tight end play here, but because you can flex tight ends very easily at FFPC if you have two decent ones. So I'm talking more of the formats that are non-tight end premium for purposes of the discussion.
Okay.
I generally don't think it's a great idea and it also goes into how many people you start in your lineup. So for example, by that I mean like at Masters leagues or I believe Yahoo leagues, you only have a 9-man lineup, including a kicker and a defense. So you don't need to be as deep at those, what I call the middle positions, running back and wide receiver. So the less people that are in your starting lineup, the more important tight end play and quarterback becomes. And there might be some listeners that play Yahoo. It's a popular format. And those are a little different because you only have 5 bench spots as well. And I actually play some high stakes Yahoo leagues, 5K leagues over there. And they're 10-man leagues. And if you only have 5 bench spots, you don't want to be carrying 2 quarterbacks. You don't want to be carrying 2 tight ends. So there's value in having strong quarterback and tight end play. Knowing that you don't need this amazing depth at those middle positions because you only have to start 5 of them. Including a flex. You have flexibility. So back to my point, if it's a 10-man league like NFFC, or if you're playing FFWC where it's an 11-man starting lineup, I'm not in the quarterback and tight end game early typically in those. One or the other, not both. Because you need to be strong at running back and wide receivers because you're starting 6 of them every week. Unless you have a wonky team where you're flexing a tight end, which I don't like to do in straight up PPR formats. One or the other, not both. That's the right way to do it, in my opinion.
Yeah, you end up being like kind of chasing at one of those other positions, right, Dan? If you double tap kind of tight end and quarterback early and around, even if it's FFPC, as much as those tight ends playing those flex spots, and you always see those wonky like teams that draft like 2 or 3 super early tight ends, and it kind of makes it uncomfortable almost, trying to see what they're gonna do next. Anything to add with Chad's comments on the QB and tight end position right now in roster construction?
Yeah, even in FFPC, I don't really like to be early on both of them. What I call a kind of a rainbow start where you've got all the colors early. I tend to like my teams best when there's one color missing for a good bit of the draft, and I just kind of come back and take 2 or 3 late there instead of trying to force the early one. And it as I've gotten more experience in the format, I've gotten a little bit more strong in my opinion that way. I'll still try every now and then something closer to a rainbow start, and I end up pretty much hating my teams almost every time. So
I experiment with them all when they drop at FFPC, and those FFPC drafts are fun because it's not cookie cutter like a lot of formats become. I used to hate tight end premium. I told Dave that for many years, but I've really kind of grown to like it because it makes the drafts unique.
Yes.
It also allows not that I love this part of it, but it allows the newcomer to have success because there's so much flexibility in your lineups. If you end up hitting on wide receivers later in your draft, you can play them. If you end up hitting on handcuffs running backs, you can do it. If you end up with extra tight end play, you can do it. It's more fun for the newcomer player, I feel like, which is not a bad thing. But I think that my general thoughts are at FFPC is that I don't want to push tight end too far back. I want to try to, when I usually try to find my lead tight end when nothing's standing out at a position, where you kind of get in that no man's land where nothing dropped to you.
Yeah.
You always are feeling like you're reaching for your tight end over there. So just knock it out at that point. Reach for it there a little bit if you need to. If you don't like what you're going to be taking anyway, take the tight end there, get it out of the way. I'm usually more comfortable with by waiting at quarterback. They fall there a little bit. Take a couple of them, and usually you can make it work. And then be cognizant on the waiver wire of the Bo Nixes and Baker Mayfields of the world that are on the free agent wire, and kind of cobble your way through it.
Lance is asking Dan where the cutoff is, what we consider early. Like if I'm looking at the draft room, I'd say like the first 5 rounds, Dan, like the first four rounds, is that kind of early, like tight end? Because you're looking at Lamar, Josh Allen, JD, Hurts, and then Burrow, and then you've got your top three musketeers in Brock, Trey, and George at tight end.
Yeah, I think it kind of changes a little bit from year to year, and it even changes a little bit from position to position. But there's always that break between the elite quarterbacks and then, the next level. And there's, often a couple 3 rounds break in there. And then the same thing at tight end, usually there's kind of a, 2 or 3 or 4 at the top, and then there'll be a little bit of a break, So once we get past that break on both positions, then it's no longer early to me. What do you think, Chad?
I agree with what you said. I would just like to point out one other thing regarding quarterback position at FFPC. It's very important to kind of put these quarterbacks into small tiers of 3 guys or so that you think are similar. Sometimes it might only be a one-man tier where they're just kind of in their own range, But if you can find these tiers of 2 or 3 players, and you don't really care which one you end up with necessarily, then that's when you need to look at what's around you. How far are you from the turn? That's when you need to look. Do these guys have quarterbacks already? How likely is it you're going to get one of those 3 guys to come back around if something's standing out to you, rather than just going ahead and get it out of the way because you need a quarterback? It takes patience and every once in a while, especially it happens to me more than some when they know I'm drafting that, I'm going to fuck him. It just happens that way. And I'm okay with it. But that's just, You just need to use wisdom with your quarterbacks and put them into tiers. And especially if you're on the end, look at who the teams behind have. And you can end up with good quarterback play without paying anything for it at FFPC, and that allows you to have really solid tight end play and really good depth at the running back and wide receiver positions.
And it's very dependent on the draft, and like what Chad's talking about with regards to, and I know you and I have been in rooms, and I've been in rooms with other drafters that I build teams with, and you're just thinking like, do you think, you're chatting in the DMs and you're like, do you think we can push this position one more round? Like, even if you plan on a guy and the guy falls to you, you're still thinking like, do you think we can push him one more round? And it's the quarterback position and the tight end position. It seems that that where that happens more than the other positions, but it's true because these guys do fall. And I find it depends on the draft room. Like sometimes you see them go really quick, and then other times you see them just dropping, and you're like, you know what, I might as well wait at this point because I'm probably going to get some really nice value even, later on.
I know
just
Chad
never
will agree.
Never panic.
Never panic.
Yes. I know you'll agree with that, Chad, that, you can get some amazing value sometimes at quarterback if you just if you sit back and you just let the draft come to you and you say, you know what, no, there's still a couple guys I like here, I'm going to wait. And you just keep grabbing other positions, and then all of a sudden, you end up with, what did we end up with, JD, on that grow? We got a 16th, 7th round.
I've got it right here.
Jordan
We got
Love.
Jordan Love in the 17th round to pair with Drake May. We got Drake May in the 12th, and then Jordan Love fell to us in the 17th round. I mean, as a QB2.
I don't particularly love Jordan Love.
No, we don't either. We don't either, but the value is just too good to pass up.
17th round. I mean, you'll take it. This is a guy who was quarterback 5 2 years ago. So not that I'm thinking he's going to end up quarterback 5, but I also don't think he's going to end up as bad as he was last year.
I don't know if you ever met my uncle Kelly, Dan, back in the day in Vegas, when he used to help me draft teams out there.
I don't think I met him personally, no.
Okay, but he doesn't help me anymore. But when the last thing I'd always say to him before he was going to do a big draft for me was, when in doubt, pass on the quarterback.
Yep.
And I still believe that philosophy to this day. So.
I don't disagree, man, at all. And I think we're seeing that this year. We talked about some of these. I mean, some guys aren't even getting drafted, especially like these redraft tournaments, Dan, like the Big Gorilla and stuff. Some of these guys that we like late are not even getting drafted in some of these drafts. So you can definitely push the position. And those are some wise words from your uncle, Chad, that, like you said, whatever years ago, it still applies, right? And still a philosophy that you can take to any draft. It's almost like you can't go wrong if you push the quarterback position. And like you said, never panic, because there's always some value falling. Let's go back to the question from Kyle really quick, because he did tell us it was a 12-man. The rounds don't play a factor, Chad, with regards to Henry and Josh Allen. Do you have a preference with, we're talking elite quarterbacks, or do you prefer?
So you're keeping one guy on your team for this year?
You're either keeping Allen or Henry, and then the other guy just goes back in the player pool.
Yep, and he's got all those other guys already.
I would not keep Allen.
Yeah, I think Henry's the answer there. We just talked about how
Henry's the best player on your team theoretically.
It sounds like it.
I can make a case Bucky Irving's better than him, but whatever.
Yeah. I mean, they're going around the same range. They're kind of the same tier, right? Henry goes a bit before Irving normally. But I do think we just talked about the quarterback position. I think, Dan, that's probably the answer, is keep Henry and throw Josh Allen back in there.
Yep, totally agree.
So we're going to finish this off with a bit of a rapid fire. Chad, what's one mistake that you're seeing? And maybe you've already mentioned it, you want to kind of re-highlight it, but what's one big mistake that you see drafters making right now in 2025 in the draft rooms that could cost them?
One thing that I see repeatedly, and again, this just best ball that I've done so far, that's going to change tomorrow night when I get into main events at FFPC and elsewhere. But one mistake I just always see people make over the years, and we just kind of talked about it at quarterback. If somebody jams them at a position and it starts off a whole new tier of player,
Chase.
Like, let's say, it's kind of a weird example, but let's say George Kittle gets taken and you wanted Kittle. I see people they'll just take Laporta next.
Yeah.
Because they were locked in on that position. Don't get locked in on position. If the guy is taken that you wanted, don't take a way worse one. Take what's there for you at the other positions. That's the mistake I see all the time in drafts. Don't panic. We just talked about not panicking at quarterback. Don't panic anytime. If your pick gets taken, refocus, regroup, take a breath, make the right pick.
Yep. Take the better available player, especially if a tier drop has just happened. I just had that happen, Chad, in a league. I took Igbuka as my fifth wide receiver in the 7th round, and I was like, okay, coming around the 8th round, I should get one of Jalen Warren, Tyrone Tracy, Jordan Mason, or Travis Etienne. all 4 of those go off, boom, 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 boom. And now I'm like, there's not a running back I really like here. So I went Diggs in the 8th and said, you know what, screw it. I'm going to take my 6th wide receiver. I'm going to be done at wide receiver, and I'll come back and hit running back later because, there was too much of a teardrop, and it just, I felt like Diggs was worth more than any running back that I could grab at that point.
And to that point, if you panic and it's take a way worse running back that you're likely to get the next time by.
Yep.
What you're allowing the teams that got good running back play, they're going to beat you at running back already. You took a gamble and lost. It was a smart gamble. You thought one of them would make it back. They didn't. So you lost that gamble. What you don't want to all of a sudden do is leave them value at the positions they're weak in. You need to keep building your depth, and you could be wrong on your pro evaluations anyway, where this guy could end up being a weekly starter. You could have injuries where this guy's a weekly starter. Don't be afraid to get your team unbalanced a little bit, get a little uncomfortable, but if you get jammed in a spot or two, just keep taking good football players off the board that shouldn't be on the board anymore when it's your turn, and you're going to come out okay.
And I think tier drafting is, instead of rankings, like tier up, group up your players at every position, group them up and play by tier. And like Chad said, don't go to the next tier at running back if a running back run just happened. Go to another position that that is at a higher tier. Like Dan talked about, going to get Diggs as opposed to getting RB whatever because an RB run just happened. We talked about quarterback, tight end, how deep it is. I think it's logical, but it's definitely, I think, words that if you go in every draft room thinking that, and whenever you're kind of stuck, you kind of play by those rules, you're less likely to make a mistake and chase. And it, like Chad said, it not only does it weaken your roster, but now you're strengthening the other teams around you that are taking advantage of those values at the other positions. So some great advice.
And also the drafts always tend to re-situate themselves. So if you miss on if you're strong at wide after you took your 5th wide receiver there and you missed on the running back tier, you can't take one. You can't take a running back. That's when you can also take a look. Is it a big reach to take a tight end here? Or is there a tier drop off at quarterback if I could take a little better quarterback? That's where you want to look at those positions as well. But what you just do not want to do is take running backs that go typically a round and a half or 2 rounds later in this spot because you need a running back. Do not panic. Stay stubborn. And that usually works out the best for me.
You're better off trying to make that spot up by adding depth at that position as opposed to taking it in the round that you're talking about. Add depth later on and maybe multiples and try to hit on a value later on as opposed to chase. That's the better way to make that up, in quote unquote, when you're looking at the, passing on that run or chasing a position. You're better off trying to add later on at depth and hit the position that way. So
I would also just say one more thing on that point. I don't play in a lot of leagues that have trading because I don't have time to deal with trades during the season, quite frankly. But this applies even more if you're in a league that has trading. Definitely take the best wide receiver or whatever. Do not reach for running back. That applies double. And if it's a trading league, you want to get even stronger so you have trade leverage.
Well, even Dynasty, right? Dynasty, when you're doing a Dynasty startup, you want to take the best player available all the time. You're not looking to build your lineup in the draft, right? Because you can always trade later on for those positions, and that applies there as well. So let's do a quick rapid fire, Chad, and then we'll get you out of here. You've been awesome. You've dropped a lot of very valuable nuggets, guys. Make sure you smash that like button, smash the subscribe. We bring some of the best on the planet, and Chad is definitely one of the legends in high stakes fantasy. one plant flag, Chad, whether it's a receiver, a tight end, a running back, someone that you're willing to go a bit over market on right now in your fantasy drafts.
So this is always tricky because I have so many teams, so I don't have any, and that's the honest to God truth. I'm better at identifying guys that need to fall a little more, but I have a way more open player pool than my peers do. So it's usually going to be a guy like last year was Jordan Mason for me. He was my most owned player by far. So it's usually a later round guy. That's when I'll reach up guys I like. This year, I really like Tucker Kraft at tight end. We'll say that. So he's a very comforting guy for me to pass on the Kelsey and Hawkinson, the Porter, and then reach a little bit for him if I need to.
Dan, is this Tucker Kraft talk's going to change your mind at all?
Plant guy. I'm not planting my flag on him, but I could see one guy that I'm probably going to own way more than the consensus is Giddens from the Colts.
Yep.
Clear path, especially if there's something to that Goodson injury. If that doesn't amount, then back off that because I think Goodson's a good football player.
Love hearing that. So Dan, we're gonna have to. I'm gonna have to come back to
real deep guy.
Yep.
Yes.
Not being drafted, not going to be drafted. I'm not drafting him. Guy to keep an eye on if he ends up in the right running back room after cuts are made. Chad Schroeder from the Rams. We don't need to get in depth. Nice. Just keep an eye on where he goes. He's a complete back. He can do all three phases. And he's a cerebral player. He would be immediately Dallas's best running back right now.
Wow.
All
right, take note of that.
A super high bar, but that's good to know.
No, it's not.
Actually, I'm going to do a quick rapid fire. Which Dallas running back are you drafting right now, Chad?
Javonte, clearly.
Okay. Give us a fade. Is there one guy that you're generally fading right now at ADP? Someone maybe we haven't talked about, if you can.
Yeah, there's a few of them. Let me just kind of go through round by round here real quick and think. I'm not a real big Henry guy. I'm a subtle Barkley fade, but I'm still taking him. I'm starting to become a subtle Breece Hill and Garrett Wilson. Not real loving what I'm seeing there too much. Adunze from the Bears, I'm not real interested in. That might be the most polarizing one that some people like, some don't. I don't. So.
And I think you talked about your late round click that you keep hanging. It was probably DJ Giddens at this point. Tahad, you asked a question. You kind of listed off a roster, but I'm not sure what your question is. So maybe specify, like, is that a big gorilla? Is that what kind of league is that? And what exactly is your question? Because you just asked, hey guys, thoughts on the 12-team PPR, and then you listed your players. So we'll kind of do the outro here. If you give me those specifications, we'll come back to the question. You guys have been awesome in the chat. Appreciate all of you guys. Lance, Kyle's Money, Tahad. A few more I'm probably missing. Jamie's always in the house. Deo, appreciate Deo from First and 15. Nick Constantino is one of the Go Bills guys. And Mason Spain, our brother out there in Fantasyland. Make sure you guys smash the button, guys, the like button. Chad, you've been awesome tonight. You always bring the goodness. I love, the honesty, just your takes straight from the streets, man. You go out there, you drop some serious cash on those platforms, and you walk the walk. And we, I know I do when you're on, and I know Dan does. I hang on every word and, every player that you mention, and it, it makes me either rethink. Obviously, I joke around, patting myself on the back, but it is nice when you mention certain takes that align with whether it's an approach that we have in the draft rooms or a player we like. Is there anything else that you'd like to share, or maybe remind the people where they can find you, whether it's on the X Machine? I know you're ramping up now for draft season, and I love the fact too that you don't start drafting these tournaments until now, because I remember last time you were on, you mentioned that, and I know last year, and I started tracking more like where I was getting my results, and a lot of them were kind of those, late August, early September drafts, definitely.
No, I don't. I've been offered to work for a lot of different places over the years, and if I wanted to do that, I would be. But so I don't really care if people follow me or not. I'm not really in it for that. I like to compete and win, and I'm starting to cut back a little bit, but I'm going to go big one more time. I really want to win one more big contest before I call it a day, but and then get back into going out to Vegas again when I'm not doing 7 or 8 drafts at a time on Vegas weekend. So
yeah, those Vegas drafts are so fun. It's we've missed having you out there, Chad.
Yeah, I look forward to it when I can actually talk to people instead of doing 5 drafts at a time on my computer. So it just kind of defeated the purpose of going. I felt like an asshole a lot, when people would come say hi. I couldn't really talk.
True story. I sat next to Chad once in a draft, and he's not kidding. He's doing like 5 drafts on his computer in addition to the live one, and
with shitty internet out there.
Yeah, and it's amazing to behold. I mean, I'm sitting there watching him, with my jaw kind of hanging slack a little bit, and like, what the hell is this guy doing? But it's, and props to you, because I mean, being able to not only do that, but you're talking every one of these leagues is a high stakes league, and you're winning at a much higher clip than most people. So to be able to do that.
One thing to keep in mind though on that front is I draft in a unique way where I let people fall to me, and it helps me not panic, like we talked about.
Yeah.
It helps me take the best player available, because I sometimes only have 10 seconds to look at my decision. I don't have time to overthink everything, like other people do. Overthinking things is not good in fantasy football drafts a lot of times. I don't have time to do that. So I usually end up with good players on my teams, even if it's a bit of a misfit looking operation. And then I'll make it work on the free agent wire to balance it out or whatever. So
Chad, remind me, are you a stacker? Do you stack players like in best ball and stuff? Are you a guy that looks for stack, or is it only if it kind of lines up, or do you just kind of ignore that altogether?
So this year, I bought the Establish the Run tool for best balls, and it's a good tool. I don't use it to take who they suggest, but what it does do for me, it allows me to draft 4 or 5 at a time with those 20 or 30-second clocks. It's hard to do because they don't have a volume button on their, if I'm doing it on the laptop, they don't have a volume. But the Establish the Run tool has a volume feature that alerts you when you're up on a draft. And then they highlight the best options in green to take.
Interesting.
And you can input on there if you want ADP to be more important or stacking to be more important. And I set it towards ADP, but it still alerts. I have it at the right balance now where it alerts me to the stacks that I might not otherwise be aware of if I'm doing 4 drafts at a time. It at least gets me to consider those options if I'm in a tricky place. So I would highly recommend that tool for people that are doing a lot of best balls. And so I'm becoming a little more cognizant of stacking in best balls. I'm still not a big redraft stacker.
Yeah. Yeah, I know that's.
I'll keep it in mind, but it's got to kind of be in slot. I'll maybe take a quarterback to go with a receiver in slot, where Otherwise, I might look to fortify my position players a little more and wait for a quarterback later. Now I'll maybe consider that a little bit more, taking the quarterback there when I otherwise wouldn't. That's kind of where I'm at.
Okay, free plug there for Establish the Run, so they can give us a shout. But you know what? That's good to know. And I believe we talked about this last.
Is that wrong to shout them out?
No, not at all. Not at all. No. I love those guys over there, and I have no problem at all with it. And I appreciate you kind of highlighting a tool like that, because there's a lot of tools right now, especially for best ball drafts. A lot of different draft assistants and that kind of thing. So it's good to know your take on that, and how it helps you. And I
also can blindly say that if people just use that tool and make the pick they would recommend every time, they are not going to win.
Yes. Yeah. And I think it's like the way you describe it is kind of more what it's for is just to kind of allow you to see all the options quickly, because you only have the 30 seconds. So you don't necessarily rely on it, but I think it's definitely a good little nugget there for our listeners. No, dude, this has been awesome. You guys see his handle on X Machine on the screen. It's Chad SCH23. But we always appreciate you coming on, Dan. I know you were pumped for this one. And guys, like Dan talked about an article that he's got on Player Profiler. He's got Fantasy Empire out there. He's doing what is it? Remind me the other one that you're doing.
Yep, got Stack Hunters as well with Bradley Stalder. So yeah, we got an Empire show coming up tomorrow morning, 11 o'clock Eastern. So feel free to tune into that. And we got a lot of fun stuff happening. There's going to be drafts popping off every which way now.
Yes, it's that time of year, right? Especially the big money tournaments. We've got a bunch on this very channel, so make sure you subscribe. And if you're not already subscribed to Player Profiler, you can use the code BALLER for the all-in package, and you'll get $25 off the all-in package, and you'll get all of Dan's articles. You'll get all the goodness on the site, all the stats. You can kind of create your own reports. Like, there's so many different angles. They got trade calculators, everything you need basically for fantasy, no matter what format you're playing on there. Again, you guys were awesome today in the chat. Make sure you guys are subscribed, smash the like, and that's all I got, guys. This has been a blast. Appreciate all of you, and we'll check you all later.
Event
We're
draft
drafting
season.
a main event team on FFPC, $2,000 entry team. Grand prize of $1 million.
I'm looking for that $1 million top prize.
Main event season is in full swing.
Goat District, you know the Pope listens. Dynasty, our religion, for the blokes missing. On all of these trades, on all of these plays, on all of these grades. By the end of the day, y'all getting played. So, what you gonna do next? Try to fill up that flex? Send the homie a text? That trash offers the best? You try to make it complex, then they text you back. Now all of a sudden they don't make any sense. Broaden your horizons, boy. Dynasty's not for the Simons, boy. These trades not for consignment, boy. Respect your opponent, y'all some piranhas, boy. This my advice, from me to you. Open up your cute little podcast queue. Search up GOAT District, my dude. Pop it in your ear, man, y'all know what to do. It's the... And I always be traded. And I always be traded. And I always be trading. Y'all try to betray them, but first you gotta bait them. Fish.